All right, we are back with another episode of the UroGenie podcast. This is your host, Vadim Fedorovsky, and today I'm delighted to be joined by our in-house urologist and designer, co-designer of the UroGenie Uroflow meter itself. So welcome, Steve Zderic, to the show. I hope I said your last name correct.
Thank you, Steve Zderic.
Zderic.
It's a real tongue twister.
Is that Polish?
Croatian. So
Croatian.
close, absolutely.
Okay.
Probably started out in Poland somewhere. Certainly Slavic.
Yeah, I have always wanted to visit Croatia. My parents really like it. Were you born there or where were you
No,
born?
I was born in the United States, but I have visited the Adriatic coast and I've been to the hometowns of all my grandparents. It is beautiful.
Yeah, it's a kind of a bit of a gem in Europe that a lot of people sort of, they hit France and Italy and that area, but they kind of coast over Croatia. Yeah. Well, Steve, it's a pleasure to have you again, and let's just we'll go right into an introduction into what we're working on and where we're currently at with the UroGenie. What the heck is it? What is this thing, the UroGenie? Let's start with that.
So what we have in UroGenie is a hardware and software solution to a problem, which is how do we accurately measure flow rates in a urology clinic, and what are some of the problems that we run into? And the current technology just seems so antiquated and outdated. Here we are in the 2000s, and we're using technology that basically has been around for 50 years. I think we could do better. And initially, when I began to think about this problem some years back, I was focused on a hardware solution.
Mm-hmm.
And then we realized that in and of itself is probably not what we need. We need a software solution so that we can get this information integrated into the electronic medical record and do so seamlessly so that the clinic can run more efficiently.
Yes, because some of the early research you did was showing that not only is the process inefficient, but more specifically, it's because these printouts that are being used as we speak are just cumbersome and prone to getting lost and really outdated. It's kind of a weird. I was surprised when I found out about it that it was like I was kind of I thought it'd be, I was surprised that it wasn't already integrated in this way right into the patient record. And why do you think that is? Why do you think no one's solved this problem yet?
So in fact, as we move further along in this process, I often have asked the rhetorical question. I mean, we might as well be living in caves.
Yeah.
And, so I think that there's several barriers to this kind of innovation. And the first is that somebody has to have some free time on their hands to begin to develop some prototypes
Mm-hmm.
in terms of devices. And although we did that fairly quickly by building on a basic model that was established over 50 years ago by Dr. Drake here in Philadelphia at Jefferson Medical College. He designed something called the Drake Uroflow meter.
Oh, okay.
And
so
initially I thought it would be fun to just try and take his device and make it digital.
Okay.
There are geometry considerations as to why we can't do that, because one of the things that we also wanted to do was develop a device that could fit into any toilet. Yep. So that it could be used in an office setting, and more importantly, could be sent home with patients so that patients could begin to generate their Uroflow data at home.
Yeah, and keep
You know,
avoiding diary. This is what
and keep avoiding diary.
yeah.
Absolutely. Right. So that there are many ways in which this technology could be put to use as we think about the practice of clinical urology. But one of the more fascinating parts of this journey for myself and Jason Van Batavia, as we began to really explore this in greater detail, was that number one, it was clear that we didn't have the engineering expertise to take our prototype to the next level. We certainly did not have the coding and software development expertise that was necessary. And thirdly, we really needed to talk to our customers. So we relied upon a program from the University of Pennsylvania called the I-Corps. And what they specialize in is trying to help young academic, or maybe old academic in my case, faculty who have an idea that has commercial potential. What they want us to do is start to talk to our customers early. So don't put the cart before the horse. Talk to your future customers and ask what's important to them. Now, in that sense, Jason and I are basically consumers of such a product because we're practicing clinical urologists. But when I thought about what bothered me about uroflowmetry today, which was having to empty that little bucket into the toilet, having to paste paper on paper and scan that by hand into the electronic medical record, as I thought about all that inefficiency, I learned something. When we really talked to the future users in the real world, when we really talked to non-academic, real world urologists, the number one complaint they had about Uroflow was the patient shows up to my office and doesn't have to urinate.
Mm-hmm.
That just came up time and time and time again. And in fact, when we asked them, well, does it bother you about how you empty out the little bucket? Nope. When we asked the nurse who does this work, does it bother you about emptying the bucket? She said, well, I take it as a given. We said, well, what if we could develop a device that would empty itself? And her response was, I didn't even know that was possible.
Yeah. But would you say, let me stop you there. Would you say they're more annoyed by the patient that isn't ready to void or isn't ready to void enough than
Absolutely.
than even the printout aspect?
Hands down, hands
Okay.
down. There's no question about it. Without a doubt, the most disruptive aspect to my colleagues today who are practicing medicine in the real world is the patient who shows up who can't urinate.
Why?
Because then what happens is it offsets the clinic flow, right?
Right.
Suddenly the patient clinic begin, the clinical schedule, you're falling behind.
Yeah. Yeah.
And staying on time is so important in clinical practice for so many reasons.
Yeah. Well, first of all, you're doing like 20 of these a day, right? Sometimes.
Exactly.
Yeah. Even more for some clinicians.
And for some practices, even more.
Yeah. So it just completely, your office turns into like a waiting room for people that have to pee at different times, and it just, yeah, I completely understand that.
Right. So you in effect get backup,
Yeah.
right? And the clinic flow and the clinic efficiency are harmed by this. So that was, much to my surprise, that was really the big bother. And we see it ourselves in our practice too. We understand that's one of the limitations. We get this a lot.
So would you say the people you interviewed in the market research they were the most excited about something that could be done at home and transmitted to the, through the cloud, right?
Yeah, I think there's significant enthusiasm for that. I think that we have to be very careful about how we go about this.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason is that uroflowmetry is also a very important tool in the office. And it's also very important as a revenue generator. Mm-hmm. So we have to make sure that this can be a win-win.
Yes.
And we, under no circumstances, want to harm or intervene in a clinical practice's ability to generate a good economic return from getting a Uroflow. Uroflowmetry is very profitable. The goal here is to make it be profitable and efficient so that your office resources can be used for other things, right? I mean, after all, right now, the nursing staff is taking up time emptying things, emptying the bucket of urine, pasting paper, scanning it, and more importantly, that data, once it's scanned into the electronic medical record, can't be searched and sifted and quantified and graphed over time. You're left to sort of hunt and peck for that information on your own. So this is
I found that
this
very
is really
surprising.
informatics.
Yeah, I was surprised by that even more so than the paper printout. But so you can't really. How do you review it as a urologist? If I'm your patient and you want to look back at my Uroflows, like you just have to pull each one up individually.
Exactly. We're going to have to pull up each one individually,
There's
and
no
you're going
integration into like one.
So
Yeah.
that's so you have to hope that the study was put away labeled as in Uroflow, right? And sometimes they are, and sometimes they're not. And you hope that the date is on it, and you're basically left to open up each individual report on its own. So there's no way that you can click and get a table that shows you how peak flow and voided volume have changed over time. You're stuck opening up each study individually.
Yes. So what I'm seeing is that the message that we're trying to send out is we're looking to solve multiple problems. The first one is, of course, that we want to make we have made a small, easy to use device that can be used in the home or the office. It's not one or the other. It can be used in both settings, and has the added feature that apparently it could be a bit of just conditioning, but that apparently people don't seem to mind having to empty it. But why not? If you don't have to, that's even better. And then, in addition, the other problem is that this printout inefficiency and also the micro problems that come out of it. So having it all integrated digitally, securely in each patient's file can help in numerous ways. And one of them is also the not just review of data, but the billing of each Uroflow, having the data there.
That's right.
Ready to view for billing. Because it's true. What percent of Uroflows would you say do not qualify for billing? Is it like if you don't get a good read, you can't bill for it?
Yeah, exactly. If the patient comes in and voids, 50 cc's and says I'm done, you really should not bill a study like that, right? And so, yeah, ideally, having someone come into the office, for example, who's an older gentleman who's having significant lower urinary tract symptoms, who's already given you 4 or 5 flow rates from home, that gives you that much more data to evaluate. Now, the reason it's so important to still try for an office Uroflow is that's when you can also measure the post-void residual by ultrasound, right? And when you put those two pieces of information together, you're going to be able to manage the patient more effectively.
Okay, so that's a second part you do with an ultrasound machine?
Right.
Okay. That wouldn't be like a home-based thing. Okay.
Not yet. Now, there are home-based ultrasounds that are coming along that are going to drop in price, but right now those are still incredibly expensive systems. But you can imagine a day coming where you would send a patient home with a Uroflow device such as UroGenie and say to the patient, I'm going to ask you to send me 20 voided volumes and flow rates. And oh, by the way, when you're done with each flow rate, I'm going to show you how to scan your bladder with this little handheld ultrasound that also hooks into your iPhone. And you're going to send me the residual, post-void residual urines.
Oh, yeah.
That day is not far off.
Oh, no. Yeah, I would think that's very soon. Yeah. I mean, everything is heading that direction for home-based medical, non-invasive home-based medical procedure. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, and
Patients want to be liberated from the office experience.
yes,
Patients
yes,
want good value in healthcare
yep.
based on the best data that we can get. And patients don't want to spend a lot of time waiting in a waiting room any more than we want our patients waiting in the waiting room for long periods of time. So, and this was addressed beautifully in a wonderful book by Eric Topol called The Patient Will See You Now.
Oh yes.
And what Dr. Topol argued in that book is that patients are eager for devices that will allow them to transmit data into the physician's office to be evaluated so that we can start to manage people remotely,
Oh yeah.
assuming that we already have an existing relationship with them. The office visit is never going to go away any more than the office Uroflow is going to go away. It can't, and it shouldn't. This is just another way in which we can get more information. So, I mean, just as an example, we start Flomax for an elderly patient who has lower urinary tract symptoms, and we want to see how they're doing. If we can track them from home with a Uroflow meter, we can get good, solid data and do a video visit with them.
Yeah,
This
it's
is the future.
two different applications. So I mean, I see it as like
Absolutely.
the home, like the voiding diary, as we mentioned before, is the doctor can monitor their patients on an ongoing basis using that diary, and then also when they come in, whenever, if it's quarterly or every 6 months, then it would be a different experience, and also would obviously include, like you said, the ultrasound and a more thorough style of investigation. But there's plenty of, we're only as good as the data we have, so there's plenty of good data coming in as this patient is using a UroGenie device at home. It's being billed for in the proper way by the doctor. So that's
Well, the one other point I was going to make is you're right.
yeah.
So lots of home data, voiding diary, available for use in the office. And as I was showing in that last example, how patients respond to treatment, right? Is very important. So you start a drug like an alpha blocker for lower urinary tract symptoms, and you can actually track progress remotely using this kind of technology. It also has tremendous application then for drug trials, which are notoriously expensive to run.
Oh,
So again,
right. Yeah, because you can just have them at home doing it
that's right.
instead of having to get the funding for them to, I guess, be in a laboratory with you.
More data, real-time setting. So, for drug companies that want to study lower urinary tract symptoms, a turnkey solution like this is also a win-win.
Exactly. So closing out here, I want to let the listeners know where we are at as a company and what we're doing right now. What's our focus? We're not selling the device yet. We're not ready. We're still I know you just walked out of the laboratory with a magnificent test result, and everything is going in the right direction. But what are we focused on right now in this upcoming Q4 of 2022? I can't believe it's almost over already. Wow. So what's our focus now? We've contacted a list of early adopters who are going to be the first to use the UroGenie. And what's our goal there from your perspective with those early adopters?
So the most important thing we want to learn from our early adopters is this, are you gaining value from this experience?
Yes.
Can we shorten the wait in your clinic? Can you gain data from home that is valuable in your management of these patients? Are patients happy with it? Can they use the device readily? Can you use the device easily in your office? Is the setup easy? And is the information available to you readily when you click on the link in your electronic medical record? Are you happy with the display? These are the touch points that are going to be important to us, and why our early adopter program is so important to where we evolve this company.
Absolutely. Yep. Yep. Those are all the data that we're looking for. And that's all the data that's going to help us make a better product and a better experience for both the patient and the clinician.
And we think it's important that this be done in partnership with urologists who practice in a real world setting, not just an academic setting, but truly, you know, a high volume adult clinic, a clinic that focuses on women with lower urinary tract symptoms, where you'd be getting a lot of voiding diaries too. Any of these settings in the real world are really key to us.
Yeah, and the last thing that I forgot to mention is, you know, I think we've heard that from some of the people we've already spoken to, that if it works for CHOP, it'll work for us. But I can't believe I haven't asked you yet, what is CHOP's role in this? So where does CHOP fit into all of this with UroGenie?
So we developed the basic prototype in our urology research lab here at CHOP. And then as this evolved and it became the basis for Dr. Van Batavia's master's thesis here at Penn, we then got CHOP to buy into this, and they hold a patent, and now this technology is licensed to UroGenie. And
okay, so it's CHOP patented technology that's licensed to us at UroGenie.
Exactly.
Okay.
And this is creating I think a win-win. It strengthened our position when it came to getting some additional small startup funding, and it certainly helped when we got funding from the National Institutes of Health with a Small Business Innovation Research Program grant, which really breathed life into the company.
Oh yeah.
And has let us get the software development up and running that we need.
Yep.
None of this would work without the software.
Yes. Because it's one thing to make a new Uroflow meter that's lightweight, easy to use, empties itself, but the other, you can't have the bread without the butter. It's the software that we're using and building to integrate into the via Bluetooth into and the internet through to the EMR. That's a major innovation.
It's huge. And in fact, years ago, when Dr. Van Batavia and I were first auditioning for someone to come in and help us really get UroGenie from a dream into the beginning of a reality, Roman Fedorowski asked me and Jason, well, guys, is this a hardware play or a software play? And we both answered a software play. Even at that stage, we really understood that the hardware alone was not going to be the answer. We needed help with software, because basically what we're left with is an information management problem. And I think UroGenie will offer a good solution to that.
Absolutely. And I think that's a good place to wrap up this episode. We're going to be doing future episodes as we progress, and we would love to have you on again, and we'll have Jason on next time as well to
Excellent.
And give us insight. Thank you very much.
Anytime.
Yeah.
Anytime.
I really appreciate it. And I know the listener will also appreciate it, because it can be confusing if you're trying to go through white papers, but when you're just in your car, relaxed, on the way to somewhere, just you can have a quick blurb like this and listen to it and absorb it. So thank you again.
Anytime.